To the time that a lot of us have been waiting for. We now invite our guest lecturer for this event, Mr. Austin Isihueme, to give us his the lecture. While he's coming, I invite Professor Matthew Aziegbemi Izibili to take his citation.
Our guest lecturer for today is no other person than our brother, a son of the soil, our friend, and a socialite. Mr. Chairman, sir, I have with me here what I have tagged executive profile. Over 30 years of industrial experience as a corporate executive, security strategist, and current chairman, CEO of Stanobis International. A foray into his academic pursuit reveals here that he is a proud alumnus of University of Benin, where he bagged BSc with honors biochemistry, postgraduate diploma computer science, and masters in business administration, as well as London School Business alumnus. His brewing career. He spent 19 years at Guinness Nigeria, Dago managing European African operations as a London certified master brewer. I learned the rudiments of brewing under him. He was my boss in my days in Guinness Benin Brewery. Security career. Spent 10 years overseeing banknotes production at Nigerian Security Printing and Meeting, followed by the leadership at Transworld Security. You can see his facial countenance, very secure. Advocacy and family. A prolific writer, change management expert, and dedicated mentor who is happily married, and the marriage is blessed with children. I present to you our guest lecturer, Mr. Austin Odia Isihueme.
My brothers and sisters, I'm really happy to be with you today. I wouldn't want to go through the entire gamut of protocols again. However, I'd like to salute the Chairman Board of Trustees. I also salute the Vice Chancellor, because I don't want my degree to be withdrawn. Chairman of today's occasion. Representatives of our traditional rulers present. And then there's somebody here who, if I don't recognize, might make the whole front very hot for me. If you look at the hat I'm wearing in this picture, where I look very rotund before the problems of Nigeria started, and you look this way, you'll see the man I borrowed it from. If you were wearing glasses, you might even think he's the one there. That's my brother, Honorable Friday Tula, former Speaker, Edo State House of Assembly, former member House of Reps. Where is Jude? I cannot do this without calling your name. A silent achiever. In preparation for this lecture, I can't tell you the number of times we have chatted. He always wanted to make sure I don't turn out and say, no, I'm busy or I can't make it. Even when I was in hospital, he was calling daily to say, Oboy, how far? Even though I wasn't the one sick, but I was nursing somebody very dear to me. So, I want to add a bit of interaction to this lecture. If I ask right now, what is the biggest issue in our society that affects everyone seated here personally? Can anybody answer? Insecurity. Any other one? Hunger. Any other? No money. Thank you very much for that. So, I think there is a consensus that the biggest issue that concerns us today, that keeps us awake at night, is insecurity across the country. So, haven't agreed with that. When you talk about making the families a safe haven, the biggest issue that will make that impossible in Nigeria today is insecurity. And there is no one here who has not been affected. Your relation may not have been kidnapped. They may not have burnt your house down. You may not have wanted to travel and you couldn't go. However, if you listen to that role play, you heard the family members recount the impact of insecurity in their lives. Someone whose school fees cannot be paid. A woman who goes to market and cannot buy ordinary tomatoes. Some people have had to withdraw from school. Some schools have been burnt down. Their own school doesn't even exist anymore. And of course, there are some whose communities have been wiped out. If that has happened to anyone, how can he then say he has a household that is a haven of safety which can contribute to the development of his community? So, this lecture, therefore, is very apt at this time. Household havens, forging safer communities through empowered families. So we will have to start from the beginning. There is this bird in Esan, we call it ubu. I think some of you will know it. Ubu flies from the top of a tree, but when it's going to another tree, it doesn't fly from top to top. It will first of all come to the bottom before it will climb to the top, even though the top is where it is headed. So the family is the basic unit of society. So if we are going to discuss how our communities can develop, how they can be safe, how they can be productive, we need to start from the basic foundation, which is the family itself. So, the lecture is going to take this form. I will discuss how and why this conversation matters. Then there are a few concepts that will aid our understanding of the discussion. Then we will talk about the features of an empowered household. So when you say a household is empowered, what does it mean? Then you can think about your own household as it stands today. Is it empowered or is it disempowered? And if so, why? Then Nigeria's security journey through from independence to date. How has it always been? How is it now? Then we will talk about the current security reality in the present day Nigeria. However, if we don't know the scale of the crisis, how big is this problem? The solutions we profile and the contributions we make may not be sufficient to address it. How insecurity disempowers household. Then we will look at a few examples because we can have examples to discuss for the whole day. However, we'll just take a few selected examples to push home the point that Nigeria is actually unsafe and households are worried. Then the impact on households. What are the hidden costs of insecurity? There are those who can easily relate with, but there are others that are hidden and are also devastating. Then how do we forge safer communities? Here we are trying to do a bit of solutioning. And then conclusion and a call to action by all. So that's the outline of the lecture. And we want to discuss why this matters. What is the challenge before us? Insecurity has become the major threat to families and communities across Nigeria. So today, even those who felt they were very remote from where this was happening, they are beginning to feel the heat. There were days that if you mention insecurity, our minds will take us to the northeast. But recently, we heard what happened in Kwara. We heard what happened in Oyo. In other words, we are gradually moving down towards the southwest, towards the sea. And as I stand here, even Ekpoma has been in the news. And I did hear Jude talking about security arrangements to protect us as we give this lecture today. It was not always like that. So, we will also look at violence, kidnapping, displacement, and economic hardship, which are now weakening households' stability. Because if the household is not stable, the community cannot be stable. If the community is not stable, the country itself cannot be stable. And then we look at what we mean by safe and empowered households. Because without the safe, empowered households, you cannot build a resilient community. Because all the deviant things we see, even during their role play, you heard them talk about a guy bringing home a car beyond his means, and the society, the immediate family, is celebrating it without asking, how did you get this? So, this conversation matters because, one, insecurity is a major threat to all of us. Two, these sorts of displacement, they are weakening our stability at home. And three, safe and empowered households are essential for building resilient communities. And if we don't have resilient communities, there's no way we can make progress. So, security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. This is our constitutional ground norm. And of all the things that governments are supposed to do, the prerequisite for a wholesome, peaceful, progressive society is actually a society that has security and welfare. And that is the job, just to put it mildly, that is the job that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has given to the government. It therefore means if you want to measure the success or how well a government is performing, you need to look at their achievements in providing security for the society itself. Any other thing you do, buy aeroplanes, open airports, if the society is not secure and the people are hungry, it means that that government has failed, no matter what it tells you. So we want to look at certain concepts that will help us to understand this issue of security and its impact on our people. What is a household? Because as we use it, we need to be sure exactly what it means. So, a household consists of people who share the same dwelling and use the same facilities. This household may just be made up of a man, his wife, children, or they may have other people that reside with them, but they are living in the same building or structure. And so we consider that a household. They may be related by blood, they may not. It could even be friends, but they are living in the same place, in the same accommodation facility, and they share certain facilities in that area. That is what we are calling a household. And then what is a family? That is the basic unit of society. And it is formed by blood, marriage, or adoption. So when you talk about your family, and this time we are talking about the immediate family, this is what forms it. And that is the basic component of a community. And here, you can, especially us as Africans, we like to talk about the extended family. So when somebody is telling you, oh, this man is my brother, he's not just talking about his sibling. He's talking about other people that have distant connection with him. It could be an uncle, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, and so on. And then we look at security. What is security itself? When we talk about security, we are talking about protection from harm, danger, and anxiety. Because if you see somebody that is frightened, nothing is even happening yet, but he is frightened, he's not sure what is going to happen to him, he's anxious, you can't say he has security. So, when there is no harm, no danger, and that anxiety is absent, then you say you are secure. But in the presence of any of those, then we say you don't have security. However, sometimes this is related to safety, but they are different. When you talk about safety, you are talking of things that can happen, but they are unintended, but will pose danger to you, cause you harm. For example, if you have a tree, a very big tree near your house, and that tree maybe is still alive or is dead, but it's very close to your house, it doesn't pose security threat. Because if it falls because rain is falling, that is not a deliberate action. So that is a safety issue. But when you have somebody carrying gun or breaking your house deliberately to attack you or to steal what you have kept, that is a deliberate action. And that one is insecurity. Whereas the person who didn't know how to light a gas fire at home and switches on the gas before lighting the match and therefore causes fire that burns the house down, that is a safety issue. So those are the differences between the two. Even though you cannot be safe when you are not secure. Okay. Now, what is a haven? Because we talked of household havens. What is a haven? A haven is a place of safety and peace. A place where when you are there, you feel very secure. You are happy. You are at peace with yourself. You don't worry when you are going to sleep because you know that place is secure. And in that same haven, you have food to eat. If you are sick, you are able to take care of yourself. You are not worried about where the next day's meal will come from. And when the society is hot, that is where you run to. If you hear there's a bomb blast in Ekpoma, God forbid, that place that you run to, so that when you get there, you feel safe. That's your safe haven. And that is your own haven. And then, empowerment. When we talk about empowerment, most people these days, because of political coloration, think that empowerment is maybe buying somebody a sewing machine. Honorable, I'm not throwing stones here. So, however, when we say empowerment, we are talking of the process of gaining skills, resources, and then the confidence for you to improve yourself. So, in other words, when we are talking of empowerment, actually, we are talking of providing an environment where you can help yourself. An environment that you are safe in, you are secure in, and therefore you can pursue those things that will make your life happy, progressive. That is what we call empowerment. It is not when you are spoon-fed, but a situation that is provided such that you are able to take care of yourself, decide your own future, and then you'll be able to contribute meaningfully to the larger community. That is what we are calling empowerment. So, when we therefore say an empowered household, based on that definition you saw before, that would be a household that has all this, isn't it? So, if that's your household doesn't have the means to sustain itself, and it doesn't have what is called resilience. Resilience is like when you are bent, you don't break. Because every society has challenges coming once in a while. However, ability to sustain yourself, recover after that challenge, that is what we are calling resilience. So, if you have a household that has that resilience, then you have an empowered household. And what are the characteristics of an empowered household? The first one is quality and access to information. Quality education and access to information. So we know that without education today, in a normal structured society, things become more difficult. Because when you talk of health, you talk of development, you talk of innovation, it is those who are educated that are better able to contribute to that process. So, a household where you have quality education and access to information, that is one of the characteristics. If you have a household in which these are absent, it means that that household is not empowered. Economic stability and viable livelihoods. What this means is that that household will have access to do business, access to income, access to finances, because sometimes you need to borrow in order to improve your business or even start one. If you don't have that, and then you don't have a viable livelihood, and you are in a state of hunger, penury, then that household is not empowered. Good health and well-being. I know some people whose whole family household has been ruined through the ill health of just one of them. Because sometimes when health challenges come, we leave every other thing and focus on rescuing the life of the one who is having that ailment. So, when there is good health and well-being, then a household is said to be empowered. That does not mean sickness will not come, but when it does come, you have the means to deal with it. You have the health facilities nearby. And those health facilities have the required equipment, facilities to treat the ailment. The drugs that you have are ones that can cure your ailment. I'm sure that there are people here who have heard that some people even died through injection of a fake drug while trying to solve a health challenge. Then strong family relationships and values, where you have a strong family leadership, where there is love, where there is respect for each other. And then active participation in community life. A family that is empowered, a household that is empowered, is the one that joins the community in development issues voluntarily. In Nishan, where we farm, sometimes people are called out to go and clear the road that leads to the farm. An empowered community is the one that will come out voluntarily to join that process or contribute to development projects that benefit the entire society. Then resilience in times of crisis, which I've mentioned before. And lastly, security and safety. So, if we look at all these, security and safety overrides all of them. Because there's no way you can have quality education, economic stability, good health and well-being, strong family relationships, active participation, and resilience when you don't have security or a secure environment to carry out your activities. And that is why this discussion in this lecture is going to focus using the lens of insecurity to look at how our family households have been disempowered, and also if we are going to look at how do we re-empower ourselves, we need to do something about insecurity. And what needs to be done will have to involve the government, the community, the household, and even all those who can help us, people like Jude and the Joseph Foundation. So, strong families build strong communities. And so if you want a strong community and you don't have strong families, of course, that is an impossibility. So let's look at the history of insecurity in Nigeria from our independence to today. I've shared the periods under certain groupings for easier understanding. If you look at the first, 1960 to 1980, this we have called reconstruction and early stability. So this is post-independence. What happened? Those of us who are old enough today will remember that in those early days, insecurity was not like this. People could enter a car and travel from here to Ibadan at night. But is that happening anymore? No. So, but remember that the Civil War happened within this era. And the impact of Civil War on insecurity is that after the war ended, a lot of people have had access to guns, arms and ammunition, and have learned how to use them. But a lot of people were demobilized from the armed forces. And they didn't even have the means to survive. So the temptation became high to use the knowledge you have, use the gun, which you are now used to, and that was how armed robbery started. So the next period was the rise of urban crime. The armed robberies here were very low. The incidences were few and far between. Remember, they were called highway robbery because it just happens on the highway once in a while. But here, armed robbery now became an urban crime. Those of you who remember what happened in 1986 in Edo State, the era of Anini, where my officer here, if he was going to work, would put his uniform in a paper bag. Banks were being attacked, and people couldn't even go out in Benin, if you remember. So, and there were other armed robbery syndicates that operated in that era. So, in this era, these urban crimes increased, and then militancy also started. Remember, we are looking at the period from 1980s to 1990s. Militancy in the Niger Delta, where resource control agitation started because people in that region felt that oil exploration has damaged their means of livelihood, which was mainly fishing. And therefore, they said they wanted to share in what God has given them. These people were not actually fighting the society. They were not dealing with communities. Instead, they focused on the oil industries and the government. And of course, because around that period we had military regimes, the military was also able to contain them to a large extent. Then, the next era, 2000 to 2009, that is the era of serious insurgency in the Niger Delta. Now, it was not just capturing oil workers for ransom. This time, they were doing serious damage to oil facilities. And if you remember that the government relied on revenues from the oil industry, this was hurting the government and hurting, the rest of the society. And then, when we leave that area, when we now go to 2009 to 2015, this is the era of Boko Haram insurgency. How did this start? There was a man called Mohammed Yusuf who was leading a fundamentalist group which eventually became known as Boko Haram. When people were dissatisfied with their modus operandi, the government had to take action. The man was arrested by the military, as we heard, and handed over to the Nigeria police. And then, surprisingly, he was said to have allegedly died in police custody. And his members, especially his number 2, Abubakar Shekau, then became more violent. Their members, that Islamic fundamentalists, became more violent, and they decided to go into very violent confrontation, not only with the government, but with the society itself, because there was alleged political involvement in that era. So, this era led to what we call insurgency. In other words, this was now against the government and the sovereignty of Nigeria. People were being killed. That's when we first of all started hearing of mass bombings in schools. Remember in 2014, when the Chibok girls, I think 287 of them, were kidnapped and taken into almost something akin to slavery. As we speak, not all those children have been released, even though we were lucky to have some of them released. So, in this era also, some of these Boko Haram people, they changed tactics. There were splinter groups. One of them was called Ansaru. Another one was called ISWAP. ISWAP is Islamic State for West African Province. Because, in fact, what they aimed for is to convert part of Nigeria into an Islamic state, and from there expand to take over the whole of Nigeria and the whole of West Africa. That's why they named themselves like that. So, that was what happened here. Even though there have been some achievements by the government by way of military action. As we speak today, we still hear of Boko Haram attacks. However, this was originally restricted to the northeast. Later on, when Asaru and Iswa split off, they started to attack places like Abuja, Nyanya, Kaduna, Kano. And again, their activities were mainly restricted to the north. Then, 2015 to 2026, which is where we are today, this just became a restricted insurgency in the northeast. However, the offshoots, which is Ansaru and so on, they spread towards the rest of the north. And then a new phenomenon came on. And that new phenomenon was kidnapping for ransom. So these guys kidnap and then ask for the payment of ransom, running into millions. And then banditry also came on stream. This had more roots in the northwest of Nigeria. And states like Niger, Zamfara, where this is even more driven by what is called illegal mining. People are making millions and they are using these bandits to guide their areas of operation. And we are feeling the effects. However, they have since left that area and have reached the southwest as we speak. What of Edo State, which is in the south-south? Their impact has been here as well. Some of them, through Kogi State, operates in parts of Edo. And, of course, kidnapping has spread all over. If you look at what is happening, a lot of them are grossly underreported because we'll look at figures, but those are the ones that are tracked and reported. So, what is the current reality on insecurity? The insecurity right now has no boundaries. So anybody who feels that his area is not involved or he has not been attacked and therefore it's not my problem is living in a fool's paradise. So, let's look at these figures. This may be difficult for you to see, but let me read them out. This is insecurity by regions from 2021 to 2026. If you look at the northwest, this is number of people killed. You have more than 11,000. 11,273. If you look at the number of people kidnapped, we have 13,768. Those are human beings. Those are family members. And we are not in a state of war. This is the northeast. The northeast you have 7,862. And then you have those killed, 7,862. And then those kidnapped. We are just talking about those that have been tracked by government. They may be more than this. It could even be double. So here we have 1,500 plus. Then let's go to the southwest. Those killed, 1,092. And then those kidnapped, 807. If you go to the north central, 8,700 plus are those killed. And those kidnapped, 5,800 and I think that's 73. And then you go to south-south, the same thing. So what are we saying? When you hear people are kidnapped or killed, in some countries, when 5 people are dead, it's enough for them to make trouble. A single American citizen was kidnapped in Niger Republic and brought into Nigeria. The American Armed Forces slipped into Nigeria. I hope we know the number of thousands of kilometers between us and the US. They slipped into Nigeria, killed all those who kidnapped him, and retrieved their citizen alive. But here we are talking about thousands and thousands across the country. So we need to do more and help ourselves. So this insecurity, therefore, has no boundaries. And we have the widespread banditry and kidnapping, which have now spread across the whole country, including Ekpoma, Uromi, Iro, everywhere. Herdsmen and farmer conflicts. This one is more common in the Benue Plateau area, or what you call the Middle Belt, where whole communities are wiped out by those who people say are Fulani herdsmen, and those with whom they fight are mainly farmers, sedentary farmers. But certain communities have been totally wiped out. I'm sure everybody sitting here will remember what happened in Yelwata, which was exposed by, the extent of which was exposed by VDM, if you remember, with videos showing whole communities wiped out, people burnt alive, their houses destroyed. And therefore, that community, virtually nobody living there. A lot of instances of that have been happening in that area. So, criminal networks are moving from the northwest now into the south, so nobody is safe. And then many Nigerians no longer feel safe in their homes, farms, and highways. Even in Ekpoma here now, I'm aware that a lot of people, once it's getting towards 7 o'clock, they start to move to their houses. And when they get home, they still sleep with one eye open. So, let's look at the scale of this crisis. We have already looked at a certain scale that shows number of people killed and then kidnapped around certain regions. And I said those are the ones tracked by government. And then national displacement volume. What this one refers to is the number of people that have had to leave their normal abode and are now living inside what you call internally displaced persons camp, IDP camps. In Edo State here we have one. And that one is in, I think the place is called Ohogwa in Edo South. And if you know the number of people that live there, they run into almost 1 million. So, displaced and are living inside IDP camps, 3.6 to 4 million. I think Edo State is just about 5-point-something million in population. So we are talking of almost like everybody in Edo State living in IDP camps across Nigeria. That should be frightening. And then you have over 26.5 million in a state of acute hunger due to acute national food insecurity. If you look at the areas that people are being displaced from, those are the areas where food used to come to the south. And if you look at the IDP people themselves, those were the ones farming. I don't know how it is all over Ekpoma, but I know that across most of Esan towns today, and across all parts of Nigeria, especially in the southern part, there's nowhere you go where you won't have huge numbers of people with hoes and cutlasses and wheelbarrows waiting to have a job to be able to feed on that day. These ones are not in IDP camps. They are not among those we counted. But everywhere you go, they are there. And that means farming acreages have reduced, and therefore the impact is that food becomes more expensive. When food is more expensive, and we are eating cheap food that we can find, nutritional deficiency diseases begin to crop up. So you find that this issue of insecurity is touching every aspect of our lives. Then we look at what is called annual kidnapping velocity. This is the officially tracked abductions. It ranges from 3,000 in, I think that was 2021, and then this year, so far, 4,500 kidnapped. But as I always say, these are the ones reported and tracked by government. How many do you know that happened at Ugboha, Uromi, Ohodua, Ekpoma, Egu. I'm just talking of within Ishan. And many of those are not reported. It is the one that the police gets involved in when there is reported to them, that you have that entry into the database. So there are more than this, definitely. So what this means is that the scale of the crisis is huge. These people are being displaced, acute national food crisis, and then this annual kidnapping velocity is frightening. So there is what is called insecurity chain reaction. What this insecurity is causing, it is leading to social breakdown in our communities, in our environments where we live. Let's look at the way it moves. Here, you have farming is affected. So, because farming is disrupted, food availability is affected. Then, you have economic loss. A farmer who relies on farming for income and for food, but right now cannot go to his farm, he starts to call the university lecturer in Ekpoma or his political friend in Abuja. Abeg, send me urgent 2K. Because he needs to live. And when he's asking you for that money, he actually is probably not sure of what he's going to eat the next day. So, this is what happens: economic loss to households, and then the household itself weakens over time. Then you have displacement, which we have talked about. Communities facing displacement, they are now moving to IDP camps. Then Dangote trucks. Not just Dangote trucks alone. You have trucks coming from the north to the south, carrying human beings, many of whose parents don't even know where they have gone, where they are, and what they are doing. And today, a lot of those that carry wheelbarrows, moving around and knocking something and saying, "I condemn." They are people's children. So, then you have poverty. Poverty is becoming more widespread and it's increasing. And then you have social breakdown. You see, people get angry when they are hungry, when they are not sure of tomorrow. So a little issue that will be resolved normally, you find that it leads to a fight. And then you start wondering, ordinary this and now the fight. But you don't know what the people are going through. And then conflict increases. Now let's look at a few case studies which I mentioned earlier in the outline. I'll try and be faster now. Esan Land. What has happened in Esan Land? We have kidnappers spread across the whole communities. We have farmers who are the major targets of their attacks, either when they are going to farm or when they are coming. And some of us have had near misses, or our relations have had near misses. Some have been kidnapped. Some you have had to contribute to the payment of ransom. And then you have farmers who became major targets of attack. Sorry, I've said that. Farmlands abandoned. Then that now has reduced agricultural production across the land. And then you have ransom payments. When you now charge yourselves to a family that cannot raise 1 million naira collectively is being told to pay 5 million or 10 million in order to get their relative released. What do? Out of love, they will find ways and means to raise that money, sell property, borrow money heavily at high interest rates, and for the next years, the impact on their pocket, on their livelihood, is huge. So that's why sometimes you see some people walking, but they are not seeing. So, this is what has happened across this land. And it started from the first guy that we know was that wasn't even kidnapping. This one was pure killing by some people who were going with their cattle. It happened near Amendokia in Urumi, between Amendokia and Uboha. Collins, Ogiriaki. He didn't do anything. Incidentally, he was a student of AAU went home to collect Gary and some foodstuff. On his way on the bike, they ran across these people who were carrying their cows across the road. Nothing. He was shot dead. And that raised our temperature. That was the very first one. But today, that is in distant memory. Near the school where that happened, the Nigerian Institute of Construction Technology and Management, even inside the school has been attacked. Some of you who read social media, you will see what has been happening around a lot of the axes of that area. Like Amedoke has been mentioned several times. Incidentally, that's where I'm from. That's where Honorable Tula is from. That's where Dr. Egberas is from. What of Ekpoma here? We can go on and on. Igweben. Remember the train station robbery? Kidnapping? Ugbegun axis. Igweben, Ugbegun axis. It's almost a no-go area. You have to time yourself properly and pray before you enter those areas. So, it has been very bad in Eastern land. And therefore, the agriculture, which happens to be our main source of livelihood, our main occupation, has been disrupted. People can no more go to more distant farmlands that have more fertile soil, where they will normally get more productivity. They can't go now. So, the living death of IDPs, internally displaced persons. I'm just trying to rush now because of time. Now, let me give you an example of what can happen. The kind of people and incidences, the kind of incidences that are happening, what they cost us. There is an IDP camp in Edo State at Ohogwa. One of the, most of course, the people from who are living there are from the north. Most of them from northeast, north central, and so on. A young man there whose education was disrupted in Goza, and Goza is in Borno State. The area where Boko Haram has been operating. The boy and some of his friends and family left there in 2014. His school education was disrupted. Because of the support they are getting from the NGO running the center in Edo State, that guy was able to continue his education at Edo State University. He graduated with a CGPA, that's a cumulative grade point average of 4.8, first class. And then he immediately got full scholarship to do a PhD in the University of Illinois in Chicago, in the United States. Now, just imagine, that's a life that would have been wasted by Boko Haram. That's somebody whose future contributions to Nigeria would not have been known, because if he didn't have this chance of staying in this IDP camp and he didn't have support, he probably would have been one of those pushing wheelbarrows and looking for iron condemn. So, millions of Nigerians are dying in those IDP camps where they don't have proper toilet facilities. I'm not talking of the one in Edo State. Some are so bad. No toilet facilities. They are overpopulated. The facilities they have cannot cope. And then they don't have access to education, healthcare, or livelihoods. They live in a situation that is upsetting. They don't even know whether they will ever be able to return back to their communities. Even when those in Edo State here were told to return, they said no, they're happy here. So, Kwara attacks. Violent attacks in two villages called Woro and Nuku. Homes and grain stores and infrastructure were all destroyed. Hundreds were killed or abducted. And then the attacks illustrate the movement of the Sahelian insurgency. You have some people, these terror groups in the Sahel, some of them even as far back as the Maghreb, in other words, Libya and so on. They are migrating. And when you see the faces of these people, you know that they are not from Nigeria. So, and that is what happened in Kwara State, which means this problem is permeating down south. And then, of course, the Oyo school attacks, where 39 people in total were kidnapped, with some as primary school children. I think there is even one that was as young as, I don't know whether it was 2 years. And you remember teacher who was beheaded. And then one little child, I think one other teacher was shot. And as we speak, I'm not sure all of them are back. So, just God forbid, how can you be talking of resilient, safe haven where those people come from? Now, when we see those figures, behind those figures, because they sound like figures, when you say 3,000 people were kidnapped or 3,000 people died, unless you know them personally, it just sounds like we are just talking. But those are human beings. Those are family members. Those are people's fathers and children of others. So, behind every statistic on any form of criminality is a family that is struggling to survive. Hey, your cable. Yeah. So, impact on households. The human cost of insecurity, rising poverty rates, growing unemployment, people have no jobs. All those people I mentioned who you see hanging around street corners and so on, they were people who were busy in farms before, but today they are just there. And when they get too hungry, criminality becomes attractive. Then forced rural-urban migration, escalating food prices, increase in petty crimes, disruption of education, psychological and emotional trauma. All these are some of the human costs of insecurity. And when we talk of petty crimes, I don't know if you know anybody who was building a house and he has even wired it. He has roofed. Then one day he comes back, the windows have been removed, the wires, the cables have been pulled. Sometimes they remove the roofing sheets. Those are things we were not seeing before. And what is causing it? Hunger. Hunger, which is caused by insecurity in Nigeria today. So, economic correlation. Let's just look at a few prices of goods. And the one of that is dear to all of us here is food stuff. Some of us, we are not too close to it. We only hear when our wife says, bring money. But when your wife gets to the market, she will price around about 10 places. And she's sweating, developing high blood pressure. So, if you look at rice, a kilogram of bag that used to be around 6 to 8,000 naira in the year 2008, today, for some high quality rice, some are as high as 150,000 or more. So the price has increased over time by 29%. Then you take Gari, which was around 2,000 to 3,500 for a 50 kilogram bag. Today, our women know, even though the price is fluctuating because of the season we are, but there are areas where Gari sells for, because these figures are from National Bureau of Statistics. So Gari that used to be the poor man's resort. When all is not well, you go to Gari. But now, Gari has become king because we are not allowing people to farm and cassava acreages are reducing. So, I think we talked about tomatoes before. Hello. Okay. Now, beyond the economics, there are other things that are associated with this state of insecurity. One of them is psychological distress, which I mentioned before, social and community fragmentation. Because it's now almost looking like every man for himself. You are trying to protect your own family, while you are now less concerned with the entire community itself. Then loss of breadwinners. Some have been killed after ransom has been paid. In other words, even though the man has died, the family is going to be repaying loans for years to come. And then caregiving burdens. Somebody who is maimed, they shot his leg, he can no more farm. The family members will now have to bear the burden of his sustenance. So, now, let's look at how we will forge a safer community through this framework. If you have connected foundations, that's what gives you a thriving society. And to have that, you need the government. The government has a role. The community itself has a role. And the family has a role. It is when these roles are all performed by the respective levers, that is when you have optimal well-being and stability in any society. Now, what is the role of government? The government is supposed to equip, motivate, and structure the security forces. But a situation in which a policeman says he has to personally sew his uniform, or he lives in a barrack where sewage leaks at the back, how can he be effective? Or some get transferred, they don't even have a place to stay, and they start sleeping on the floor in their police station. So, government has a role to play, because we need to motivate those who go to face the danger when the rest of us are running away. And that is why we too, as a society, need to be sympathetic and helpful to the security agencies by providing them with information. Then the government can help to boost the economy by providing the relevant infrastructure and social services. If we remember, let's say from the beginning from the branch that goes to ISDH, from there when you enter Ekpoma, and then you drive towards the Ruekwen, all the businesses in that axis, for many years they closed down, simply because of lack of road. No access to the place. So anybody who has a business there, or you have a house to rent out, you won't even get anybody to take it. So, providing infrastructure also helps to enable and empower the society and individual households. Then, protecting schools and communities. All these ones fall into the ambit of the government. Then, the family as the first line of defense. The strength of a nation derives from the integrity of its homes. That's by a Chinese philosopher. So, this family, what can it do? Family has to strengthen values and discipline. What do you teach your children? Or those who are still children here, what do you learn from your father? Does it bring in money that you don't know the source? If you are not providing for the family, you find deviant behaviors among children. When we talk about kidnapping and banditry today, all those who are involved, are they all from another segment of Nigeria? Our people are involved now. So, those who go and kidnap others, or those who go and provide information to tell somebody that, look, that man, the brother is living abroad, he can pay ransom. Or they just visited for a burial. Money day. Then they captured the guy from the town, and they sent the guy to their collaborators in the bush, who probably are from another region of Nigeria. But the one who captured him, maybe they cover their face. He won't know they are his own neighbor. So, it is when family values fail, and you allow a child who has no visible means of livelihood to bring home a G-Wagon, you don't even know whose blood he used to buy that car that he brings to your house and you're celebrating. We have to promote, the family has to promote education and awareness, encourage economic empowerment, participate in community activities. Like, you invited people to this lecture. Not many people will come here. They will think it's a waste of time. But those who volunteer to come and listen may pick up one or two, which they will use at home. And some of you here are going to share what you picked up from here today when you get back home. And that participation in communal activities also help to strengthen the society. Then teach peaceful conflict resolution. A man who beats his wife just because the wife disagreed with him or he disagreed with the wife, how is he going to tell the children that violence doesn't pay? So what we do at home informs what our children will do later. And then we need to adopt practical home security measures. Because while we are saying government can do this and do that, there are a lot of things we can do ourselves. Have you spent some money to fence your house properly? Your gate, is it locked at night? Or you feel, oh, my place is safe, no need. So many things. Even at home, we can have incidents of fire simply because you have bought a gas cooker, but you have forgotten to buy a fire extinguisher, no matter how small. Or you brought in a house help who was only used to the use of firewood. But now it's in your house, you just say, look, you use this, you just turn this one on, then you strike a match and light it. And she say, yes, ma'am. You yes, so yes, ma'am. You have not told that girl that you should light the match before opening the gas. And so one day when you hear there is a fire and the house is burned down, you are blaming the enemies and the devil himself. So you have to adopt your own home security measures. Now, I need to dwell a little bit about those security measures. Anyway, it's in the slide ahead. Safe households are created. It is safe households that create empowered communities. We need empowered community to create a stable and prosperous nation. And the government, communities, and families must work together, which is what the previous slide has shown. And then, hope is only possible through collective action, resilience, and empowerment. Now, what are the things that you can do? Just practical things that you can do on your own to make sure your house is a secure, safe haven. Depending on the nature of your household, do you know just buying a little dog, and keeping in your house? Dogs don't sleep. Your security man will sleep. Once he's aware you have slept, he too will sleep. But dogs will hear when footsteps are coming. And then back. That alone will alert. Somebody wants to attack you that they are awake. The dog has woken them up. They will go to the next compound. We can try that. And then you have to, in your own small community, you can actually use certain things that you already have because it's not all about money. Most of the people who have cars with remote control, part of that remote control is an alarm system. If you mistakenly press it, you start to make noise, isn't it? If you agree on your street that anybody who is being attacked or sees a hoodlum at night, just use that your remote control. And then once I hear it from your house, I press mine, the other man presses his own. The guys are going to go to another street. And then do we also talk to our children? Lecture them on what to do so that they remain safe. If you are going home, you are driving home, and you see a car, it looks like when you were turning at Ujoelen Junction, the car is still following you. Oh, you turn to another street, it's still following. He may just be going in his own direction. But don't assume that. Drive past your house. Drive past your house and move around, and if you now lose him, you come back home. But if you just assume it's not harmful, and then as they open the gate for you, he follow you from behind and then brings out a gun. And then it's not just for you to know this alone. Teach your children. And then the kind of people that they bring home, you need to watch them. And you can actually tell your child that this particular person, I don't want to see him here. It is what you do in your house, because you are the head of that home, and you have the responsibility to secure that house. So, what we are looking towards, one thing that will hit you here is that you see everybody smiling. I don't know whether we see that. We need justice for us to have our households as safe havens and our community to develop. we need opportunity. When we say justice here, we are not just referring to the court system. Do you as an elder sit in judgment over a case and you know who is right, but you say he's wrong? People do it, don't they? So, or you as a father, you have a child that you like. He's doing the wrong thing, but you are supporting him. So, when we say justice, of course the justice system is also included. If we have justice, when you are punishing somebody that committed an offense, even himself will know. And then we have to provide opportunities. These are young graduates. If you remember the role play they did, they talked about haven't gone to school, but there's no opportunity. This one is graduating, looking to the future. Probably this is brother graduated before and has got a job. Why won't they smile? Then you have this family of old people. If they are not able to buy their drugs, arthritis drugs, I don't think they probably not get this old. So it is a society that provide those health facilities that is rich, within their reach, that will make them this happy. So, if you look at that, even the security men are smiling broadly. They perhaps are not fighting insurgency anymore. All they are just doing is maintaining law and order. You look at children planting a tree. Why are they planting that tree? Because they know they will be safe and the tree will grow and they will harvest the products, the fruits of it. They will eat the fruit of their labor. So, what can we say? Peace is not merely the absence of conflict. It is the presence of justice, opportunity, security, and hope. So, now that we have heard all we have said, remember where we started from. We said, and this is not my words, we all agreed here that the biggest thing that keeps us awake today is insecurity. And that it is ravaging the whole country. And we have looked at the various dimensions, the impacts, the scale of it across the nation. Ranging from Boko Haram, Lukarawa, Ansaru, banditry and kidnapping. And we have also said there are certain things that can be done, and those who will do it, we put it in 3 buckets. We put them in 3 buckets. The first one, government. 2, the family. 3, the community itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I have done is to try and stimulate your thinking. I don't have all the answers. Some of you here, if you are giving this presentation to do, you may even do that more than I have done. However, you may be able to pick up 1 or 2 things that will set you thinking of the way to make your family a safe haven for you and your children, and also how you can contribute to making your community one that is progressive, that is able to take decisions that will shape its future so that Nigeria can be greater again. So I really thank you for listening to me. Just one last thing that is related to this. Please play it quickly. Just quickly, just about 3 minutes. Jude, please. There's something we want to show. Because when we talk about safe havens, it is not only about insecurity. We sometimes contribute to making our environment unsafe. If you have been on social media, you would have seen certain videos of recent. I'm talking of the last 3 days, 2 days, 3 days. What's the biggest thing being reported? Flood. People have been sending me videos, friends from Ghana, Lagos, Lekki, and so on. And each time you will hear them say, oh, government, come and help us. Government, come and help us. Because when there is a natural disaster, it is actually government that should help. However, there are certain things we also do that contribute to that issue. So let's look at this one. Play that. This is from Ghana. We have muted the voice because we didn't connect this to the speaker system. That's somebody's car. That's somebody's house. The whole community. So can we be telling them they have what is called safe haven? Where? There's no home now. Only God knows how long it will take for that to drain off. So in other words, everybody in that community have left their home day before yesterday in Ghana. This one, yeah, take a look at this. This one is Nigeria, somewhere in Lagos. What has now happened here, this is Lekki. Lekki that you think is a very safe and secure place where people who have made it like to go. But nature is saying everybody is the same. This guy is pointing to that. That is a canoe. And that canoe is carrying children to school. Through a road that is supposed to be a street. The children are going to school, but they have been put in a canoe because there is no way a car can drive through. So somebody who has a canoe, I don't know how he got it, now put children in it. Okay? Let's look at the last one. Yes. Please, take a critical look at this. What is happening here, this is a canal. And as you can see, it looks very clean, isn't it? And this is supposed to carry water. All the flood water in that area is supposed to be carried through that canal to the lagoon. But look at what we have done. All these are from households. People are dropping what they shouldn't drop in the gutter. And now, when your house, which is far away, is flooded and you have to run away, you will not blame yourself, you are blaming government. So, I think you can switch that off now. Why I'm saying this is because what is also happening in our communities here is that people who sell land, where they are supposed to have a street that is 30 feet wide, because they want to make money, they will leave a street that is 15 feet. Some are even 10 feet, where you have to stay in one. If you are driving, you wait at one end so that the other man can pass. You know what you have done? You are creating a flooding problem in the future. That street cannot have a drain. So when that place is highly developed and the roof is bringing all the water down, some of that water will carry your house. And then you say, oh, the government. So please, let's play our role so that our households can become safe havens once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You can do better. You can do better. Please put your hands together for him. You can do just better.